Hello.
Hello, hello. How's it going, mate?
Oh, you're brilliant. I can't hear you.
Well, I can hear you. I wonder if the audience can hear us. we have some nice uplifting music in the background as well.
Yeah.
I
Let me
wonder
turn
who
that
made that
off.
music actually. Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
I hope all our listeners enjoy the music. It's
Oh,
generated by AI. So thank you to
it's
our
just a
artificial
disclaimer.
intelligence
Yeah, it's just a
overlords.
disclaimer. Yeah.
If in case anyone wants to sue me for copyright, it's owned by Skynet, so we're good.
Yes.
Okay. One of these weeks we'll get away without any technical issues, but that wasn't this week. Although we have started only 7 minutes late, so we'll get away with it hopefully.
There might actually be a record compared to last time, if I recall.
It
It's
should
always
be, should
improvements.
be.
It's always improvements, isn't it? It's iterations and improvements.
So we have a fantastic episode of Signal for you today. Two topics. The first one and the main one is Makerfield, the Makerfield by-election. This is in response to Josh Simons, MP, deciding to stand aside and give Andy Burnham a run at being an MP. And of course, Andy Burnham is one of the most popular Labour MPs, having been the mayor for Manchester since 2017. And this is very interesting because it provides an opportunity to test the electoral waters with Reform and Restore. And both of those parties have announced their candidates, and we will look at their respective media releases and interrogate them and see if there's anything we can learn from them. Both are very interesting. And Andy Burnham has released a video as well, which we will have a look at. And our second topic of the evening is baby boomers. And are we too hard on them? This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, as Adrian will know. I endlessly bang on about the baby boomers, or boomers, as I like to abbreviate it. And Adrian thinks I'm a little bit too harsh on them, perhaps. But we will have... We'll round out the program with a quick discussion about whether we are too hard on baby boomers. So if we've got any boomers watching, this might be interesting for you to watch. So let's start with the Makerfield by-election. Makerfield is a new constituency. It was created for the 2024 general election. It's actually a re-establishment of a constituency that was in existence in the 1800s, and the writ, the issuance of the writ for establishing the by-election was made today in Parliament by the Chief Whip, and the likely date of the by-election is the 18th of June, so basically a month away. And so what we have is a sequence of events that occurred in the Labour Party, because effectively what this is the moving of chess pieces in the Labour Party with respect to the leadership. And so at the beginning of last week, we had some resignations, the most notable of which we covered in the programme last week, which was Jess Phillips, although she is still a relatively minor figure, although she's quite well known. And then on Thursday, Wes Streeting resigned. Josh Simons then announced out of the blue that he was standing down. And we'll just look into his background briefly. Effectively, he's relinquishing his seat to give Andy Burnham, who has previously been blocked twice by the Labour Party machine from kind of vectors into becoming an MP again. Effectively, Josh Simons has stood down in order to give Andy Burnham a vector back into government. And the result in the Makerfield general election constituency was Labour 45%, Reform 31%, and Conservative 10%. So you can see that in 2024, there is 15% difference between them, but Reform did very well. Makerfield is an elderly, white, working class seat, very Leave oriented, and its prime Reformed territory. It's situated in between Liverpool and Manchester. And in fact, Adrian, I think, aren't you from Wigan?
I was going to say the elephant's in the room there, isn't it? Yeah, so I grew up in Wigan. I grew up in an area of Wigan called Standish, which wasn't actually as deprived as Wigan is known to be. It's got a sort of a middle class to working class vibe, I think. I'm not sure where Makerfield is exactly. I was bumbling around like a little baby and little child, riding around on my bike when I was in Wigan. So needless to say, I wasn't following the deep political machinations or the constituency. So I can't really tell you a lot. I just know a little bit of background what it's like living in Wigan, but I can't give you some kind of crazy analysis of the Makerfield area. So
okay. So Josh Simons, I think he's age 32, early 30s. He is somebody who's come from the Labour Party kind of professional machine. He's come via think tanks and policies. He was a junior minister until he resigned in March over a scandal in which a think tank that he was the chair of was kind of implicated him in the weaponization of a PR firm against journalists in a kind of Hillary Clinton-esque hit job.
I think we call that New Labour, don't we?
Yeah, right. So it's very much in the mold of this kind of New Labour professional politics. And although he was cleared by the parliamentary watchdog, he decided to resign the seat. So he's, this is the kind of thing that professional politicians do. They resign almost at the merest hint of scandal in order to kind of maintain a strategic position, and the standing down of the relinquishing of his position for Andy Burnham is might go some way to kind of assuage any kind of perceived guilt that he might have over the situation with Labour Together, which was the think tank he was previously associated with. And of course, it positions him as someone it positions Andy Burnham, who might eventually become the leader, in a debt to him, arguably, because of course he would be the person who effectively gifted Andy Burnham the vector back to becoming potentially Prime Minister.
Yeah, fair enough.
So there's kind of an interesting strategic angle to what Josh Simons has done. And Andy Burnham then on I think it was Friday decided he announced he was running, and he Sky News released footage of him literally going for a run, and let's see if we can.
I think you've retweeted this image or something like that, or you've linked it into over to me before.
I suppose you'd say he is one of the men of the moment, Andy Burnham.
Here we go.
Current Greater Manchester Mayor, may well be candidate for.
What percentage of this podcast is put towards fat shaming, Ben?
There he is.
We're watching those rolls bounce and jiggle. He's not even that big. He's just a middle-aged guy. He just can't shift the belly fat. That's all.
Well, Adrian, I did notice that you were drinking full fat coat at the weekend, so I don't know. Let's.
That's why I'm getting a little. That's why I'm getting a little bit defensive here. Okay, that's why I'm setting up my boundaries right here. This will signal is a body positive stream.
Well, this will be you in 15 years if you're not careful.
I do not doubt that. I've already got the belly going a little bit. Not like a no. You know what? This doesn't matter. That the audience doesn't want to hear this. If anybody does want to hear, they can request via a super chat. A minimum of $20 for that particular super chat request.
Right. Okay. And that's a good reminder actually. So if you want to send us some money to support the podcast, you can do that, and we've configured a super chat for, and of course you can associate a chat with it, and we'll read them out at the end of the program if you do send any of this.
And the great thing about that as well is that currently going by the aim that Ben and I have for the donations is if we hit £100, we can go for the lobster dinner, which we were planning on doing at the Sky Bar in our local area. So if you do send in that money, it is going to a good cause. I'm just happy for the people to help us with that cause.
Of course. So we'll send a photo of the lobster as we're eating it. But so this is, I suppose there is a serious element to that. The purpose of this podcast is to deliver political analysis that we don't feel is being delivered by other people. And we can only do that if we're supported. Now, of course, we've got day jobs, but financial support is necessary to make this a viable concern. So that's why we set up a super chat. So do send a message if you are able to do so. But Andy Burnham, this highlights the kind of coordination that is the level of coordination that's going on here. I mean, he's running and he's literally going for a run. It's almost like a meme at this point. This is what they do. And then he went for another run on Monday in slightly different outfit, having been absolutely roasted for this particular choice of outfit that he decided to go for a run in. And this is the photo of him on Monday. So Andy Burnham, it was an MP in the Tony Blair, Gordon Brown era, and he's been around for a long time. This was back in 2007, 2008. He was Chief Secretary to the Treasury, the Secretary for the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, and eventually the Health Secretary. And then once Labour was out of government, he eventually became the mayor for Manchester. So he has a rather illustrious career so far in the Labour Party. And for this reason, if we look at the Polymarket tracker for this, let's see if I can add it to the stage here. We can see that Andy Burnham is by far the odds-on favourite to win this seat. Which is interesting because, of course, if you were to just look at Twitter, you might think that perhaps Restore might be the odds-on favourite because a lot of money has been being spent on Restore or even Reform, because of Reform talk a good game. But on the Polymarket tracker at the moment, Labour and Andy Burnham are currently odds-on to win that.
Can I just quickly ask, what is that with the yellow, Rebecca Shepherd, in terms of what's that sudden gulf drop? Is it just some kind of false thing to do with the data? Any ideas? It's odd, isn't it?
I don't know, but of course,
I think it's because it's a dotted line. I think it's the data dropped her into the race around May the 19th, and then it collapsed. It's an unusual thing, isn't it? Anyway, it's not necessarily relevant. But
yeah,
it's just an unusual one.
What I will say is that the other people in this race are known quantities. Rebecca Shepherd is a complete unknown. So, but I have no idea why it's at 45%. I can't imagine that that Restore was ever at 45% of the chance of winning this constituency. But you can see that the reality now is that Restore are down here at 7%ish. So let's have a look at the various pieces of media that they've released. We've got Andy Burnham. He released a video which I'd just like to show you, and then we can look at Reform and Restore.
You can. Cheers, lad.
Oh, I like the song.
I was born in Liverpool.
Oh, you like the song at the end?
My journey began in this area. I went to a school about 2 miles over there, and I remember coming here 1984 and getting battered on these pitches on the rugby league field, but I didn't hold it against them. I sent my 3 kids here because Eddie's is a great school. It was growing up in and around these streets that I saw what Thatcher's government did to places like this, the deindustrialisation, the draining away of economic, social and political power. It left places like Makerfield behind, and Britain has been on that path for the last 40 years, and it was the sense of injustice I got about the way this country is run that took me towards politics. You okay?
Yeah, well, I'm a United supporter.
Oh, are you? Right, yeah.
You are more than welcome in Ashton.
Oh, really?
You should know that.
Oh, thanks very much. All right. So I went into politics to fight for ordinary people. I fought for the miners here and the compensation we got from the last Labour government, for justice for the Hillsborough families. And also when Boris Johnson's government tried to treat people here like second-class citizens during COVID, I fought back. What all of these experiences have taught me is that Westminster doesn't work for people in this part of the world and communities like this across the UK. You okay? Have a good weekend. Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm good.
I love everything about Manchester, everything. It's just the feeling, the people. That's what you love about Manchester.
Thank you for everything you do for Manchester.
I really appreciate that.
If we could do for the country what he's done for Manchester, we would be in a better place, for sure.
I knew in my heart politics in this country had to change. And that's what I came back here to do. Cheers. And that is exactly what we have done. You behaving yourself? Nice to meet you. You okay? Yeah. Working side by side with business, we built the country's fastest growing economy.
You're doing a class job.
No worries,
Thank
man.
you.
No worries, man. Manchesterism is the end of neoliberalism, the end of trickle-down economics that has left out places like Makerfield. Make no mistake, that means a new path for Britain. The pride I feel in putting our buses back under public control, services that work for people, not for profit. Honestly, there's few things in life that will ever make me more proud than that. I declare the Badger officially... Some say this by-election is unnecessary. I say it's the most consequential of our lives. I don't take anything for granted, and I'm ready to accept the consequences of whatever choice people make.
Well, we need somebody that's one of the people, that's somebody that understands the common person. We need somebody like him for the next Prime Minister, because he will be, definitely.
What he's doing now, I think a lot of Manchester love him for that, you know what I mean?
Everything that issues in Manchester, it's time to take it to the rest of the country. Honestly, it's just what it needs.
I'm good. You? One of the things that made me most proud recently is someone saying on a doorstep, nice to see you. Andy's all right. He's for us. I am for us. All of us.
So you can see that Oasis gave him permission to use their song.
Interesting. The first song wasn't Oasis, so it switched somewhere magically. I didn't even notice. So their editing department is putting in a pretty good shift there.
So it's polished. It's artificially grassroots. I mean, look at that logo, Andy Burnham for us. This is classic New Labour, 21st century politics, where they kind of artificially downgrade the quality of the video so that it looks grassroots. Adrian, have you got any kind of initial thoughts on that video?
Well, I like the implicit messaging as one of the opening lines is when he says, oh, I remember being here in 1984. And then he looks at the camera, and then George Orwell walks around in the background and looks and winks and nods his head, and then carries on walking. But aside from that, I think as just a general thing was, so if it's like basically true that his time as mayor of Manchester was seen as popular by the public of Manchester, like Manchester city centre or whatever. If that is true, if there's a sense of it being organic in this video, that people were running out of their way to say hello to him. Not that I'm saying it is organic, because the video is the video, but if it's true that people liked his tenure as mayor of Manchester, then yeah, there isn't really any competing with him. I think that's just the fact of the matter. It's a little bit like in my local area, like the local mayor decided to run in the by-election here, and despite the general rounding of the voting not really associating with his party, he still got his position, mainly because of like the clout of him just being someone that people know. He's seen as like a nice, friendly kind of figure. He's seen in like taking part in the community and things like that. It's just huge leverage and a huge advantage. And I think I was like thinking, because I was thinking of like the demographic makeup of Makerfield, and I was thinking of like just that all that kind of thing is like, if there's enough kind of people in Wigan who vibe or are aware of this so-called success of him being a mayor in Manchester and it being good, he could actually take it as the favorite. But if Makerfield is built up of people who just don't care whatsoever about his tenure in Manchester, then I mean, that's the thing, is I was having these small comments that I was thinking of making throughout the video, just about little things here and there, but ultimately the thrust of that video is very clearly, I worked in Manchester, so I'm going to work for you, and I'm going to work as a prime minister. So it's
right.
So it just seems to be the thrust of the argument, regardless of the smaller details, I think.
You're right. It is powerful, right? So he's got this kind of powerful position as the mayor of Manchester and that track record. And he has but unfortunately, he was also at the scene of the crime, right? So he's kind of trying to distance himself from the last 40 years, as he puts it. And he describes it as neoliberalism. But he was in power during the Blair and Brown years. He was at the scene of the crime. He's been there before. And now he's standing here in 2026, looking back and criticizing it. And there's a certain hypocrisy there. It's basically...
obviously there's a hypocrisy. It's like, sorry to interrupt you, but that's just the name of the game. Like, all that's just been for the last 20 years. Well, yeah, the last 20 years, like, including, if you think of like the entire Conservative Party platform, is basically our 14 years was completely and utterly unacceptable. Vote for us. That's just the name of the game. And I don't know if that's a symptom of the uni party or politics in general or something, or if it's like the great like dumbing of people,
Well,
like
I don't think it plays well with the electorate, does Adrian? So, I mean, you're right. They do tend to do this, and of course, the electorate are mostly low information, and this is the angle that these politicians are trying to play. Is they're trying to they're not apologizing. They usually don't apologize, although the Conservatives, I think, might have actually apologized. But they kind of hope that the electorate won't quite notice that they were the people who actually affected the policy outcomes that they're now complaining about. And of course, it does beg the question: how sincere are they in the criticism? So if Andy Burnham actually got into power, is he actually unhappy about what happened, or not? Is he just saying he's unhappy about it and would deliver more of the same? Because I strongly suspect Andy Burnham would deliver Starmerism, basically.
Does Andy Burnham have an autobiography of any kind, or a biography that we know of?
I don't know.
Because that would be the go-to place. Like, for instance, because I've got that local library, well, I guess it's near us, in the nearby like mini shopping centre. I haven't started reading it yet, but I picked up this because I wanted to understand neoliberalism like in full detail, because these people like Machiavelli, because obviously I've read The Prince, these people just say it. If you give them the time. It's a bit like that old famous Jordan Peterson thing, right? It's like, if you want to know somebody's like motivations, if you're worried they might be a psycho or a narcissist or a bad person, just listen to them until they tell you. And he didn't even mean that in like a shamanistic way. He just literally meant someone will eventually tell you straight up what they're doing that's bad and things like that. And in a similar way, I mean, you and I are politically, like, we have enough political legibility to be able to watch something like this and just go, this is absolute fluff crap. What are you actually going to do? What's your actual track record? And I think, but that's again coming back to it. It's like, whether low information or not, if his tenure as the mayor of Manchester was a success, then it just gives him this really strong platform to work off of. And it's just their way. It's a bit like Sadiq Khan still being London mayor. It just seems to work for people, doesn't it?
So that's the open question, isn't it? And of course, so we've got these interesting new entrants into the party system, the two-party system. We've got Restore and Reform. So let's have a look at Restore's first, because it's shorter.
Common Sense Party.
Sorry, let me fix that.
That's all right.
Worthy leader who cares about his people, his constituents, doesn't try and lie about anything, and just really wants the best for the people. And that's it, isn't it? That's all we want. We just want to be recognised. We want us as British people to be put first.
100%. Vote Restore Britain.
Restore Britain.
Well done.
So that is... I mean, putting them back to back like that does rather highlight the weakness of the Restore Britain offering there, Adrian.
Yeah, but I disagree. I don't think it's a weakness about the offering. I think it's just the fact that it's a very small party that's majorly over leveraged on Twitter. I don't think you need to read into it too much. They've basically just gone, oh crap, there's a by-election that pops up out of nowhere. We really want to put someone down there because and I can explain why I personally think they need to put someone down there. We're just going to have to do something, and we're just going to see how much we can leverage Wigan Twitter, basically.
Right. Yes. On the other hand, that to me that looks like a weak candidate. What do you think?
Well, they don't have a strong candidate for Makerfield, Wigan, do they? That's fine, but that's fine. Like, so what? They would have some strong candidates in Yarmouth, I guess.
But they could have, they could have put Charlie Downs up or someone.
None of them. If Charlie Downs and people like that didn't go anywhere in Yarmouth, then I don't think they're bloody going anywhere. They'll go in where they live, and that's like literally it. These people are not. Anyway, I guess I shouldn't be too flippant about that, but I just think I'll actually just explain myself. I think Restore being in Makerfield has absolutely nothing to do with the quality of the candidate or actually winning the seat or anything like that. I think it's a long-term play where Rupert Lowe is doing absolutely everything he can to signal the fact that they are not associated with Reform. Sorry, he's doing everything he can to signal that they are not associated with Reform. And the reason he's doing that is not just a personal thing, although the personal thing is important. Deeper than that is that if Reform do get in, which has a decent likelihood to it, and the people of Britain see that after 5 years, they still haven't actually fixed anything, and they are just this kind of like Thatcherite uni party 2.0, which very many sort of more perceptive people such as yourself might notice. If Restore have been seen to associate themselves at all with Reform during that period, alliances or whatever, like the SDP did with Reform, then they have no chance of taking the country, basically. And so the point of Makerfield is not to win. It's to go, oh, what's that? Reform reckon they might be able to pull a miracle in Makerfield. Well, it's not even a miracle, Oh, Reform might be able to be the actual majority in Makerfield and push out the likely Labour guy. We don't care. We're not associated with Reform. We're not standing down. This is not Ben Habib stepping out the way for Rupert Lowe. This is Rupert Lowe going, Nigel, take that, Nigel, you twat,
Right. So I totally agree. And I think that there's a little subtle distinction here, right? So we don't know why they're standing. One reason might be that it's the Rupert Lowe vendetta angle, because Rupert Lowe has somewhat of a vendetta against Nigel Farage, having been booted out of Reform unceremoniously. The other angle is the strategic angle, which is the one that you're kind of leaning on, which is that it's strategically the correct play to not, to indicate seriousness by standing a candidate, even if you just have almost nobody to pick from. And I would agree with you. But if you listen to Twitter, then the Restore followers genuinely think that they have a chance to win. I don't think that's realistic in any way, shape, or form. If they'd chosen a candidate that was more serious, then I suppose they might have had an outside chance in the kind of, if they'd been an absolutely charismatic and a completely different platform, a platform that would really distinguished itself from Reform. I don't think that they've got a chance of winning at all. They might get 1,000 votes. They'll do better. There's a certain parallel here with Gorton and Denton and Advance. So if you listen to the people on Twitter, the Restore supporters, they'll be describing this lady, Rebecca, as being kind of an ordinary person and selling that as a positive. And this is exactly what Advance did with Nick Buckley in Gorton and Denton. And, he got fewer votes than the Monster Raving Loony Party.
That's an unusual position for them to take as well, because Nick Buckley is not an ordinary person. He's actually if you know anything about his history and the reason why he's got his is it an MBE? I think it is. He's an extraordinary person. So that's a surprise to me that Advance would have gone with that angle. They should have gone for like how helpful he's been towards like the homeless and things like that in his past, and the reason why he's kind of got his title. So that's an unusual position. I know I'm kind of drifting off there, but
I think what they mean, Adrian, by ordinary person is not literally that they haven't done.
He's just a bloke.
Things. He's just a bloke off the street. What they mean is that he's not a conventional.
He's not an
electable person.
Yeah.
For example, he might not be media trained, and she certainly isn't media trained. He might not be that presentable or articulate. Look, my view is that ordinary person or real person is a euphemism to describe somebody who's not electable before the elections occurred. Effectively, you're describing a weak candidate euphemistically. So I wish they'd picked someone stronger, but they haven't. And so that's Restore.
I'm not surprised at all. I think I still generally stand to my position that, well, there's two things going on here. One, they don't have the capabilities and things that actually put a supposed strong person in Makerfield. And we can get on to like contrasting that with the fact that the Reform guy does actually seem like quite a strong pick in certain areas, even if they're like not that political in many ways. There's other strengths to it. But also, yeah, they don't have the capability or the resources to put a strong person in Makerfield. And it really is and also that, what you're talking about, that kind of delusion on Twitter, is like, I do agree with you. I think a lot of people just don't actually do political analysis. I think people don't actually like look into things like demographics or history of a place or think or the actual parts of politics. And to be honest, I'm not that great at either. Like, I look at things in just like a more like a wider, there's other specialisms. So I'm not sitting here and saying I'm a political analyst at all. I have other specialisms, really. I think of things in different ways. But I think that, as we saw with that Restore video, just to kind of sum it up in a phrase, it's basically like I'll do it if you like, I'll go out there if you like, I'll run if you like, it's like, but that's all they've got for now. So let them have it. And it just means that they're serious about standing against Reform at every turn. And I think that, and I predict, as an expert political analysis, as I just said, I think that's a good strategy. So,
okay, let's have a look at Reform.
Field. If I was elected, I'd be the first person born in the constituency to become the MP. I don't think any MP that's ever stood in Makerfield was actually born in the area. I'm a plumber, gas engineer. I've done that for a long time. I did my apprenticeship when I was 18. I love being a plumber. I do enjoy it. It's hard, but I do enjoy it because I do take pride in the work. I don't know, it gets me a bit emotional sometimes thinking that there's a chance that I could be representing people in Parliament, because it's a massive honour, and people will be thinking, hang on a minute, he serviced my boiler last week.
Labour and probably the majority of the other parties have got career politicians, you know, they go to private school, to university, they get a job at a think tank, or they're an assistant to an MP, and then before you know it, they're parachuted into somewhere they've never even visited to stand as an MP. Now, they might know the system, they might know how politics works, they might know Westminster, but they don't know the area or the people, you know. You could read a book about something, but you'll never understand it until you actually do it.
For Andy Burnham, Makerfield will be a stepping stone, but for me it's the only place I've ever wanted to represent. People in this area, in this constituency, have been taken advantage of for far too long, and it's time to take a stand. The Makerfield constituency deserves a local champion. You have got a voice, make that voice heard on June the 18th in this Makerfield by-election, and go out and vote for Reform UK.
So much more polished, and a local candidate. I don't know. I mean, at the moment, it looks like Restore is nowhere to be seen. They're going to have to rely on grassroots activism and enthusiasm to persuade people not to vote for Reform, because it seems to me that Restore is focusing all their guns on Reform, and Reform is the second horse in a two-horse race. And so I think that this is a race between Labour and Reform, and Restore is effectively the spoiler. And you know, their candidate is not impressive. She cannot realistically win. This candidate for Reform, well, he's nowhere near the level of Andy Burnham, but the open question is, how hated is Labour? Because, of course, you know, the election result in 2024 was 45% Labour, 32% Reform. How has opinion shifted in those 2 years, 1.5 years, 2 years in that time? Because, of course, Labour is hated, and many people in the local area will use Reform, even though they don't like the direction that Reform has taken with respect to the Tory 2.0 strategy. They'll use it as a protest vote against Labour, and so that might nudge it to be closer. But then you've got the Restore spoiler just undermining that continually.
Yeah, but that's what makes Restore quite exciting, you know. But I think moving off of like talking about restoring this, is the way that I see it is, as you say, a two-horse race. It's this video is very exciting in the sense that we're really seeing Reform kind of blossom into an actual established party, in my view, for the first time. I know that sounds weird, but the production that they've got on this video is pretty stunning compared to what you would expect a sort of an alternative party to have. I mean, like, even just in this shot is there's maybe two major things that are kind of a big tell, and one like just minuscule thing. It's like this shot perfectly captures the feeling of Wigan, but in a positive projection, in the sense of like the kind of the attitude of Reform, as you know, like you know, bringing something back in some kind of way, reforming Britain to bring it back to greatness. Because this shot captures the traditional kind of Victorian or Edwardian red brick of Wigan. It is the industrial, like, part of the industrial heartland. So it's covered in these brick buildings that are terraced and very very close together and things like that. They're just like sort of working class to slightly middle class tier. But then the thing is, what people forget about a place like Wigan is that in many areas it's built like within valleys, and there's actually some quite beautiful like nature to Wigan, and that's why you can see like the green within these buildings is shooting through, and then on the outskirts you can see it's like these deep like parks and leading into like the copse and the woods and things like that. It's like whoever's like, and also to a lesser degree in a shot before, when the guy is talking to like his next door neighbor, or talking to the next door neighbor doing the job for the bloody plumbing or whatever. They actually picked a very overcast day, which means that the lighting can be done like really nicely and blanket over the site instead of them just doing like some random sunny day or whatever, So, and all the shots like cinematic. It's like there's obviously like now like that production, that cultural side is behind Reform now. But also what I like is that like the grand narrative here, as you say, is a 2-horse race. Reform, that the opening sentence to Reform's thing is basically all you need to hear, in a way, if you're a Wiganer looking to cause great upset and maybe even actually want to vote for a party that has your interests aside from just upsetting the status quo. Because the opening line, he says, I think I might be the first basically candidate to represent this area who is actually from the area. And it's a massive 2 fingers up to this entire like predictable robotic uni-party plot by Labour, where they're kind of like apparatchiks are all having their conversations with each other, and they're all having their little infighting about Keir Starmer. And as you said, this one guy who's been in trouble for psychopathic PR stuff steps down and says, "Oh, Andy, do you want to come over from the city of Manchester and come stand with these like bloody horrible pie-eater Wiganoids, these horrible, like, great unwashed, like, they'll vote for you." And the Reform guy is basically going like, absolutely not. Like, you can have someone who cares about you personally, and I'll be that guy. And I've actually got, like, doesn't he have, like, did he serve in the military or something like that? He's got like a decent, I don't remember the full, you might have the full list of the stuff he's done, but he's got stuff behind him, right?
I think he did, but I don't know his biography yet. I haven't read up on him.
I read something briefly that he's got some stuff behind him which makes him seem like a pretty like stand-up gentleman, And so that's what I liked about this campaign that Reform's running, is that they're giving themselves an actual chance here, which is pretty impressive, and they've got enough of a reach of people and popularity that they can just go to bloody Makerfield. It just popped up randomly as an opportunity and gone, here's a decent candidate. So it's great.
Exactly. It's impressive. It is impressive. And I don't really like what Farage has done with Reform. The Tory 2.0 strategy, I think, is detestable. It's interesting that this candidate stands quite apart from the Tory 2.0 strategy. And of course, the Tory 2.0 strategy stands in contrast to the type of politics that most people in Wigan will have. And they will detest someone like Zahawi, Robert Jemrick, possibly some of the other ones. I'm not sure. Depends. And yet, a huge block of their support that they will need in order to win are those people who actively detest the people that Farage has actively sought to hire. So Reform is this kind of weird hybrid. It's odd. It in this part of England, it seeks support from people who hate what Farage has made Reform, and so it's kind of it's a very odd thing. And then you've got sitting on the sidelines sniping Restore, who are dog whistling ethno-nationalism, acting as a spoiler for Reform. So it's a very interesting time in British politics. Very confused. It'll be interesting to see how well Restore do, how prevalent this kind of strength of feeling about ethno-nationalism is, because really that is the principal distinguishing factor between the two parties, Reform and Restore. And of course, it'll be interesting to see what the level of discontent is amongst Labour, and whether they can actually, the electorate will separate and just the modern Andy Burnham from his historical self, because I strongly suspect that Andy Burnham is Andy Burnham. He will deliver Blairism 3.0. There'll be uniparty continuum. Status quo continues with Andy Burnham. It's the kind of, like you said, the mechanistic, the mechanical transfer of power.
It's cynical. It's cynical, actually, if you think about it. It's very cynical. Yeah,
I agree.
And I think to that point, I guess it'll be the final thing we talk about, maybe, if you wanted to move on. But what I do want to say is that what makes this election so fascinating to me is that it has the potential to basically signal the fate of the next 10 to maybe even 20 years for this country. Because if people cannot see just how cynical this situation is with Labour and to some other degree the Uni Party, and they are not willing to see that and vote in reform or restore, then to me it just says that whatever kind of like, let's say, reactionary right-wing things that we want, whether that's like a massive reduction of immigration, or even for left-wing people like on the SDP, if it's some kind of fundamental change to the approach of this country, I don't really care. The point is that I think we could be set in for a lot of disappointment if this Andy Burnham guy gets in on like a majority. To me, it'll just be like, to me, it kind of signifies that culturally this country's not ready, But having said that, if reform plus restore get a majority and that splits the vote and Labour gets in, or Burnham gets in, I should say, I wouldn't lose any hope in that sense. It would be quite sad to see that, that the kind of the cynical play worked, but at the very least, we would see that there's an actual democratic demand for a change in some kind of way, which basically centers around the concept of massively reducing migration and putting the native Brits at the center of the identity question. So that's basically just what I see in here, and I would imagine I don't know if you see it in a kind of a similar way, probably, but that's kind of.
Well, I think that analysis is good. It's strong. It's spot on. What I would say is that what British politics is lacking is a genuinely revolutionary party. And I say revolutionary in the sense, not in the sense of a violent revolution, but a party that's genuinely different, structurally different. Because my analysis of the UK is that structurally it is in terminal decline, and people see this about themselves in their everyday lives, and politicians are continually making excuses for it and offering I suppose, half-baked solutions that exist within the frame of the status quo. And we saw that with Andy Burnham's video. I mean, he was going back 40 years saying that, for 40 years, the past 40 years haven't worked. And then he's kind of blaming it on neoliberalism, which is, as you kind of pointed to, is a rather ill-defined term.
You could also say, pardon me for interrupting, I'll just very briefly say, you could also read that video in the alternative way that it starts out with him, what was he walking around Makerfield, going like, oh, this was the first place I was. Oh, I remember that school. Oh, I love Eddie's. And then the audience goes, oh, he calls his local school like it's a first name. Oh, he's relatable. He's just like me. And then it immediately just cuts to him walking around the city. Like just bang. It just, so anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. I like a party. I would like the electorate to demand more radical change that sits outside of immigration. The electorate are not radical enough on immigration. Fine. I can kind of accept that they never will be as radical as I want them to be on immigration. But what I would really like is for the electorate to make the connection between the size of the state and the terminal decline that the UK is undergoing. And you can't disconnect the size of the state from the level of taxation, because the taxation is needed to fund the massive state. So the electorate hasn't made that connection yet. They continually demand, they almost expect, they can't conceive of an alternative arrangement whereby the state doesn't provide, and yet and individuals retain the wealth so that they can provide for themselves. I'd love it for Brits to kind of make that connection. I'm not sure they ever will. We may be confronted with some kind of a slow rolling collapse that forces that. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. But because just a final point on this, restore and reform, they really are, in terms of the policies that they advocate, the positions of their leaders, they exist on the same continuum as the status quo. They still have a massive welfare state. They're not moving away from that in large shape or form. And I think that is at the heart of the problems of this country. So let's move on, Adrian. Onto the second topic. We've been going for a little bit, so let's see if we can keep this brief. Boomers, are we too hard on the baby boomers? So the baby boomers are people who were born between the years of 1946 and 1964. They're between 62 and 80 years old. They are a massive cohort of Britons who were born in the aftermath of the Second World War, when normal civilian life resumed, and there were cultural norms surrounding starting families. There was an upward trajectory and a positive outlook on society, and there was hope for the future. And so you've got this massive bulge in the population graph, and this cohort of people have dominated British politics, the cultural life, and economics for decades, really. And I always endlessly complain about them, and many people get to the point where they're rather annoyed by my complaints about them. And you described it as being rather uncool. What do you think?
Uncool. Well, whining like a baby is pretty uncool, Ben.
Like a baby?
Nah, baby's a bit harsh. But I mean, I just think whining is uncool.
Okay.
And that's a lot of the way that I can put this, because a little bit of this is a kind of, as we were kind of talking about when we talked about this off of the camera a few days ago, it's kind of a question. So like you can make a laundry list of as many complaints as you want, but the question is, what are you going to do about something? That's one of the things. Is like, I just generally find being upset about something which is out of your control, I guess saying this in a quite stoic way, is unproductive, and I think it doesn't look good. Being unproductive in some kind of way, not in some psychopathic, like stereotypical German-esque way of like, anything that's unproductive is a waste of time, but it's more just a sense that culturally a lot of the whining that I see actually just comes across as being a bit butt mad, being a little bit of a chud. So that's just more the attitude of it, which I don't like, but that's not really relevant. I think what's more relevant is my conception of this situation with the boomers is that they are essentially a victim of happenstance. And what it is that when you're born, until you're 18 or so, unless you're extraordinary, you don't have any actual conception of who you are and why you are and how you got here or anything like that. And that is also the same time as your formative years. So in the boomers situation, they're raised by people who went to war, like the most mechanized war of human history, possibly the most like deadly of human history. Certainly that, like, just in that kind of level, that the sheer coldness of it, like, it's no longer a war of like tribes like attacking tribes, or gentlemen skipping along onto the battlefield and like getting a promotion because they went ha 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 ha, Austria's ours or whatever. Like, it's literally just this disgusting machine gun-esque thing, and these boomers are being raised by those people. And so, I mean, for instance, I can tell you, like, my granddad was capsized twice as a merchant navy guy who was helping with the deliveries of foods and resources between America and England, right? So that's just one of many, many stories that will be from Southport or Barrow or Liverpool and Southampton and so on. You've got all these people raised in this way, but simultaneously, like we've seen in many civilizations, like with Alexander the Great or the Roman Empire, or pick whatever, they were born under the spoils of winning war. And in America, that was more material, because they literally just the Great Loan that they organized with Britain and just being mega safe all the way in America. Whereas in Britain, it was more like a cultural victory. Like we still had rationing going on and a lot of life was suffering, but at least you could say, 2 world wars and 1 World Cup. In fact, you could say 2 world wars and 1 World Cup when you're a boomer as like part of your, think about when 1966 was, right? So what my point that I'm trying to say is that kind of what you rejected to some level is that like these boomers were born into that. It's like blaming a tree for having roots, if that makes sense. It forms its identity. And then the final point to that is that boomers are suffering in their own way. Like the things that they have created through this is like they are the ones whose children are squabbling over their dying body in the bloody hospital over the will. They have they're walking around as like very vulnerable people in the streets, like surrounded by like vape shops and kebab shops that are totally. There's that book which also had some interviews that were videoed. I know Zuma Historian has talked about it in one of his videos before he got taken down. But there's so many British soldiers or American soldiers who were asked to write about the state of their country after World War II and how they felt about it. And reading that is extremely harrowing. Like the world that they see. Now, I know they're not technically boomers, but it's still that sort of area. It's like the world that they live in, for many of them, isn't.
Well, this is the thing. So let me push back on this a bit, Adrian. So, you almost had me feeling sympathetic for the baby boomers there. So,
a single tear, and then you went, back into your blend.
They created this world. Right, so you're right. The baby boomers are in a nursing home, being treated poorly by people from the third world. Right, they're surrounded by people who don't look like them, who don't speak like them. The towns in which they grew up have been utterly transformed. The cities that they knew, London, Birmingham, Manchester, no longer exist, really, because the city is the people, and it's defined by the people within it, and they've been completely transformed demographically, and therefore they are fundamentally different. It's not a cultural evolution; it's a complete reset, and
a great reset.
A great reset. Sorry. It's a replacement, right? It's a replacement migration. And they presided over this. They voted for it. And if you speak to a baby boomer, they'll say, well, we were lied to, perhaps, they might say. Or they might say, we didn't vote for it. And then they'll explain what they thought they were voting for. The fact of the matter is, they did vote for it. They voted for the people who enacted those policies that deliver these outcomes. And so, yes, they are living through this kind of hellish dystopia that we now find ourselves in 2026. In many ways, clearly there are good elements, good aspects to living in 2026, but
well, it's probably literally the best time you could possibly live in literally the existence of the universe. We're probably in the best place in the universe, like including space-time, possible. I just want to add that, just to bring things to a more positive, look. But anyway, look, aside from this nonsense, so who did you vote for in this local election?
You know who I voted for.
Yeah.
Before.
What is wrong with you? You disgusting late Gen Xer / millennial. You had all these options.
I'm a millennial.
Of you. You had all Gen Xer, right? You had all these options in front of you. Wait,
I'm a millennial.
You're 58, aren't you? No. Look, anyway, just whatever. Like
I'm the best looking 58-year-old.
It cuts to the fucking Chad face. Ben, I am holding you uniquely and single-handedly culpable for what is going to happen for the next 60 years, because you knew that voting for reform was not this radical structural change that we need. And yet you held your nose, Ben, and you ticked reform, who you think mean nothing. And now I'm going to hold you responsible, and I'm going to get a lawyer to try and change the will that you wrote so that I can have 100%. And not what your siblings have, and I'm not gonna I'm not gonna ignore this for the next 60 years. I'm not gonna think, maybe I could have worked harder at school, or maybe I could just be happy for what I have, or maybe I could just read some Stoic philosophy and calm down. I'm going to hold you responsible for everything that happens to me. In fact, yesterday I slipped on a banana peel, and that banana peel was on the pavements of this constituency, and because the reform guy got in,
you're going to blame it on me. So
yes.
So Adrian, it's a nice straw man. It's a nice.
No, it's
nice
not
story.
a straw man. It's not a straw man because you're willing.
Because I'm not blaming. I'm not blaming everything on the baby boomers. I'm not blaming everything on the baby boomers.
But you said that they had a chance to avoid all of this, and here you are voting for a party that's just continuing the same crap. So
yeah. So well, this was the parish council elections. They're responsible for little parks, bins, bus stops.
No, this was a United Kingdom midterms. Your vote has single-handedly given Reform the ultimate marketing that it needed to cause Keir Starmer to step out of office, which means Burnham's going to step into office. So, do you see the point that I'm making? Right, the point that
no, I see the point.
I can lay blame wherever I like, and I can string up a narrative, but ultimately it's not helpful because it's just offending you, and you're backtracking, and you've got plenty of reasons why it's false, and it's just unproductive, and it's not going to lead to anything. And you could have been born in 1949, and you could have been super alert. I'm kind of making a different point now, but you could have been super woke, to these issues, and you would have only had one vote. You could have stood up and campaigned, but you probably wouldn't have been listened to. So
yeah. All right. Well, I do take your point. What you're saying is that whilst there might be a grain of, perhaps, if I paraphrase what you were saying, there might be a grain of truth to what I'm saying, perhaps, but it's ultimately not very useful and not very dignified to endlessly complain about it. And I think we can kind of. Yeah. I think we can agree on that. So on that point of agreement, let's draw a close to the podcast.
Oh, I feel like we barely got into that, mate. I feel like you've got to fight me a bit more on that. I feel like I shouldn't have won that, just by negging you.
Well, yeah. Let's keep it civilized, Adrian. But at this point, we would normally go to the super chats, and of course, yes. I'm looking at the super chats. And let me just refresh the page. No, there are no super chats.
Oh no, are you sure? Maybe you should wait a couple of seconds.
let me just refresh it again. So yeah, there are no super chats unless anyone wants to issue a last minute one.
You know what I think we should do, by the way, before we close this up, is I think because that wasn't very formal or structured, it was just me having a go at you. Basically, how about next session you come back with like a concrete thesis to your point, and then we can try and have at it. I think that would be good because I spent a lot of time going on the attitude thing, but and also I did obviously spend some time just basically talking about a form of I guess you could call it causality, which I think is different from your perception. My form of causality is basically nothing could be done. It's entirely happenstance. Whereas your causality is like, no, I can bring receipts and I can explain this. Like we have to hold them culpable. But I think for next episode, you should, since this is your topic, right? I think you should see if you can build something and then we'll like have it in more detail. I think that'd be really good. So.
Yeah, well, let's definitely do that. I agree. seeing as it was the topic that I proposed. So effectively, the distinction is that I'm trying to assign agency to the baby boomers, and because I believe that to be the more civilizationally healthy, and this is something we were talking about the weekend, approach, even though it might be undignified and it might make people feel sad about their position in life towards the end of their life, because many baby boomers are sympathetic characters, as old people tend to be. Whereas what you're suggesting is that if you look at it in the aggregate, it's not useful to assign agency to that civilizational cohort. I'll try and form an argument, and we can have it out.
Well, yeah, it would be good. It would be good, and I think what we might even do after that is if I hear that and kind of have some thoughts about it, I might try to form something back. I might see if there's any equivalencies in history. I can imagine there probably are some. As I told you, I think before, I did read that book, The Prophets of Doom by Nima Parvini, which goes into a lot of detail on different philosophers and sociologists analyzing civilizational patterns. And so I bet I could go into something to do with civilizational patterns, with this, because it's a civilizational event. The boomers were a civilizational event. I think that's fair to say, right? So,
what I would say, Adrian, is it healthy to point out an inconvenient truth? And I would argue, rather than to ignore it or minimize it, and I would argue that the more truthful approach tends to be more useful. There's more civilizational meat on the bone, if you will. There's more to be gained by interrogating something that's as closer to the truth than trying to create a polite fiction. My sense is that if we avoid the discussion, if you want to call it a reckoning, you can call it a reckoning. That's a big word. If you avoid a reckoning with what happened, what was delivered by that cohort, then you're at greater risk of repeating the same failure mode in the future.
But here's the issue: is that I'm not saying that the boomers did good and that we should accept that, or that we need to hide anything or anything like that. That's not really the approach that I'm actually taking on. When you say the truth and you're referring to the truth, that's what, in a way, that's a good placeholder term for what we're talking about, because what you're trying to claim as the truth is that they had agency in this, whereas I'm trying to claim the truth of it is that they didn't really have the agency that you think they had. So that's why it's really important for next session. Just because of the time constraints, really, like going researching and stuff, it's like you should come back and you should give me evidence that there's agency, and then I would try to run a cross-examination of that, really, because right now that's hey, this is a good introduction to the 10-part series. Actually, I think.
Well, Adrian, what I would say is in response is that actually it doesn't matter if they had agency; it's more useful to treat them as if they had agency. So I'm
pretty sure I read that in Mein Kampf, didn't I? That the bit where I said, it's not really, it doesn't matter if the Jews actually did anything or not. It's more useful for our nation if we have an enemy. Okay, he didn't say that, by the way. He didn't say
I don't understand the reference, but what I'm saying is where I was going with it. I thought the joke would be that it was kind of a bit like a Jordan Peterson-ism, but where I'm kind of going a bit too meta. But I would argue that for the purposes of civilizational discourse, right, which is the level that this is operating at, because the boomer cohort is civilizational scale, treating them as if they had agency will deliver more interesting lessons than if treating them as if they didn't have agency. So, because I think
that's I think different. Go ahead.
Because what you were asking me to do was to establish that they had agency. I'm dodging that by saying, there's a debate to be had about whether individual humans have agencies or even cohorts have agency collectively. Let's put that to one side and assume that they do. What lessons can we learn?
Oh well, that's fine. That's a totally different thing. That's fine. I'm not even being sarcastic. I'm literally saying those are two very different subjects. Like, if you want to do a what's it called? If you want to run perhaps an early moratorium on boomers, and get the get what you call them in the what's the people who analyze dead bodies? What are they called for the police?
Forensic pathologist?
No. There's at the mortuary or whatever they're called. Those guys, coroner. If you want to get a coroner and exhume the boomer body and brain and get the coroner on it, yeah, that's a very different conversation because there's two ways we can take this, and we can build up to this another time. One way is saying, like, boomers, do they have agency both individually and collectively? That's more to what we were talking about, when this segment was running. Yeah. That's one thing, right? Do they have agency or not? And that's a very interesting conversation. But a just as interesting conversation, but I think would be less in conflict, would be saying, get the coroner in on the boomer. What do we find? What was good, what wasn't? And in fact, as you said, on my channel at Ren Summoner, you've seen that I've already done a little bit on that, where I did talk about the boomers. So yeah, that's we could definitely separate that out into two different matters that we can handle, and I think maybe the audience would hear that, and then the super chats would start pouring in,
rolling in.
Yeah.
Let me just refresh the page. Oh, there's still 0. So.
Yeah. Oh, you sure? Just give it a minute. It just comes in like me just writing like, you're an idiot. Nah, you're all right, mate. You're all right.
Okay. Thank you for your contribution to episode 3, Adrian. Let's bring it to a close. Thank you to all our viewers and listeners. And we'll see you next Tuesday. And just before we go,
by the way, I know Ben said thank you to all the viewers. If you are a boomer, he does thank you as well. You're one of the good ones. So,
and before we go, Adrian does have a YouTube channel. Adrian, what's your YouTube channel?
Yes, so people can see the name here. That's Ren Summoner. If you want to go search that up on YouTube, just search that. If you're lucky, a good video will come up. So yeah.
So go and subscribe to that. So thank you, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.